Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm the host of this session, and I'd like to introduce to welcome Nathaniel Whitestone, who is going to talk to us about the European future of the Neighbourhood Parliaments movement. He's with SONEC Sociocratic Neighbourhood Circles. So, welcome, Nathaniel, and anything you need, I'll be here to support you.
Thank you very much, Nara. I see a lot of people that I know and love, but more importantly than introducing me would be to introduce the people with whom I shared the 2-year journey of our SONEC development project. And so would my co-presenters please put your hand up so we can see everybody can see who's been part of this. Kathy, if you want to put your hand up as well, that great. And then and I especially, although all of us contributed intensively in our working together, I just want to give special appreciation to Barbara, whose work in the Austrian Center really brought us all together in this collaborative process. So Barbara, thank you so much for what you enabled us to do. Because we have limited time, I'm going to speed right into the content. And there will be 20, maybe 30 minutes available for all of us to talk, but only if we move quickly through this part. So allow me to begin. I've been asked to give a quick overview of, what are neighborhood parliaments? What is SONEC? What is the history? What the heck are we talking about? After I do that, then all of the people who've been active in SONEC over the last few years will have a chance to share their experience and where they're going in their area. For 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll all have a chance to come back together and discuss as a large group. So I'm going to try to share part of my screen, and let's see if this works the way I think it should. Yes, okay, this is the conference thing. And there we go. Sorry, folks, I'm just rearranging stuff and there. Okay, so Sociocratic Neighbourhood Circles, part of the Neighbourhood Parliaments movement. So I'm just going to start off by saying, what are Sociocratic Neighbourhood Circles? There are examples from around the world, but this movement originated in southern India. So it has changed in various ways over the last 40 or 50 years. And so there are different models out there, lots of different models in the thousands and thousands of neighborhoods that are practicing this, broadly speaking, what we might talk about as neighborhood circles or neighborhood parliaments. But the standard model that I'd like you to keep in mind as a current example of what we're advocating for is that you have a neighborhood, and in your neighborhood you have, this is a small neighborhood. You might have about 100 residents or 30 households or so. And each household contributes a representative to the Sociocratic Neighborhood Circle or Neighborhood Parliament. And together, those 30 people collaborate in leading different projects in the neighborhood. So projects around social connection, projects around local economic, ecological, and social initiatives. Broadly speaking, you might think about things that would serve the UN Sustainable Development Goals or the triple bottom line of people, planet, profit. They lead initiatives around learning together. And of course, they govern together, dealing with other organizations in the immediate area, dealing with local government. And then you have 3 circles, for children, youth, and adults that are all connected with one another. And then this neighborhood circle also connects with other neighborhood circles in the area, coming together. So you might have 30 neighborhoods in an area SONEC, 30 area SONECs in a district SONEC, etc. And ideally, this federation would go up to the global level. We do have a global children's parliament, but we don't have a global adult parliament that's been federated up. And at some point in the future, we hope to. This model was started to be developed in the 1970s by Father Edwin, who was at that time a young village priest in southern India. He was inspired by the liberation theology movement and the Gandhian village Swaraj, or self-reliance. And so, he first tried out this kind of self-organizing in rural India and found that it worked very well. And then it spread first to other Catholic communities in Tamil Nadu, then to the communist, self-organizing in the state of Kerala next door. And over the last several decades, it has spread around the world. In the last 2 years, we've done an initiative in Europe looking at how we can adapt what has worked so well in southern India to a European context. And that's now what each of my co-presenters are going to speak about, sharing our own process of learning from this neighborhood parliament movement in southern India, and then taking it to our own places in Europe, and in Kathy's case, North America. So I'm going to pass over now to, let's see, can I pass to Renata? Can I pass to you? And then you continue to pass on. We'll each have about 2 to 3 minutes to talk about our own experience.
Maybe it was Barbara supposed to talk. Am I wrong?
Okay. I'm actually not sure who should go next. Barbara?
Because I think I'm going to present just very specific things so maybe Barbara can introduce SONEC more in detail.
Okay, great.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you that I can now speak, but I'm not doing presenting SONEC in more detail, but also bring, as you do, Renata, only an experience what we have here. So I think I really would like to hear you, Renata, first.
Okay, if you really like. Okay, so let me try to present. Okay. Okay, if I have more than 2 minutes, then can you see it? Yeah. If I have more than 2 minutes, so I participated in SONEC for, as Nate was saying, for about 2.5 years, and I knew when I joined nothing about sociocracy nor about neighborocracy. I was just a member of one of the partners of this project that involved 7 countries and 9 organizations, if I'm not wrong. And the reason why I decided to join was the background, where the environment where I was working, and where I just moved from Japan 3 years ago. I live in a nice town that it's about 150,000 inhabitants, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And even though there are many interesting associations and initiatives that try to improve the quality of life of local residents, so you actually have a radical gap between the touristic part of the town and the resident part of town, with major issues related to mass tourism. I identified that there were some major issues locally that made participatory politics and decision-making processes very hard to implement in a really democratic way, which means that on one hand you have the local public sector and administration that has that lacks a long-term vision, and it's also very inefficient. There is a major division among the key members of the civil society. There are very chaotic discussion processes, and which means that you start a conversation, you start a meeting, and you don't know what you're talking about and what the outcome is supposed to be. And meetings also end up when people just suddenly stand up and go away, and then you find out that what you were supposed to be discussing and hasn't been talked about at all. And that there is a generalized sense of exclusion from important decision and decision-making processes, which is generated on or caused, I suppose, that on one hand you feel like you're not involved, so you don't care anymore, or because you don't care from the very beginning, you're not interested also in being involved in what is the common good. So I thought that SONEC could be a method for including more people in the general decision-making process by working in small groups, in neighbors, and using sociocracy, which I consider way more democratic than democracy. And that's the background that inspired me to participate in this project. I'm not going to enter in the project and how it worked, but I'm trying to show you, giving this background, what after, actually since I joined SONEC, I've been trying to implement, and not only myself, of course, with the support with other people. There are at the moment 3 interesting post-SONEC developments in my life. One is called the SEMI, which is Sustainability, Education, Mobility and Inclusion, a small group of local residents of the city center, the historic city center, the one that I said that is over touristified at the moment. So with local residents, we're trying not to fight against tourism, not to fight against anything, but trying to rediscover the local memory. So what the island and what the city center, what Siracusa itself, the whole city, used to be, not in terms of looking for a nostalgic past, but because we think that if you know what we were and where we came from, we better understand where we're going to. And so it's a way also, involving local residents, new residents, old residents, all come together and talk about what we had before and how we can improve the present as well and the future. And also offering some services like here it says Via Lattea. It's a project for it's called a Milky Way. So we created in different shops around the city center, stops where moms with babies can breastfeed and change their children completely for free. And different shops decided to join this project. And we're doing other stuff with this group, which is not an association, it's just a group of neighbors. This is my neighbor, the condominium, the houses where I moved 6 months ago, and here we're only 16 families, but people didn't basically talk to each other, and we didn't. Well, no one really know about what their neighbor was doing. And then with a group of neighbors, we started to organize, like on top here, we see this picture was from in January when we decided to take care of the plants that we had in our condominium. And the major issue for us was that there were people, like if you see this picture on February the 7th, how the rubbish would be just thrown out any time of the day, any day of the week, without caring about the that we have rubbish that has been the garbage is selected according to the date, and then going door to door with a piece of paper that was showing the collection date, the time, etc. We went like a group of us door to door, and then we convinced everyone to look after their rubbish and to throw it away the day that it was supposed to be done. And this is the situation, and I am very proud to say that it's still the situation today. After it's always been like this, and I only moved there 6 months ago. So I'm not saying that it's all my, it's not that I've done all this by myself, but it's something that I'm very proud of, that I was able to implement together with others. And then the last thing that it's please don't. Well, I think it's. I'm running. I'm walking very slowly for elections, arriving to my local elections in Syracuse, because I decided, even if I'm not a politician and I don't really like politics the way they're run at the moment, that I'm not a big fan of democracy the way it is at the moment. I thought that because I was asked to do it, to join the city council, that it would be an opportunity for me to try to change things from the inside, because it's always much easier to criticize what others do and just let politicians do what they want, instead of being yourself involved in first person and try to change things from the inside. I don't know if I'm going to be elected. I doubt, but at least I tried. And I think if I am, I would really like to change the way, as I said at the beginning, decisions are taken. I'm actually at the moment in the group of people that are running for this same city mayor. In the same group, I'm trying to organize meetings in a sociocratic way, at least, like with with an agenda, stopping people and doing making decision consensual. So at least somehow I'm putting a little piece of sociocracy and a little piece also of neighborocracy if I'm ever elected, because I think that people need to be more involved in the decision-making processes, and we always think that things have to change from children and from schools, but schools have so many things to do that they cannot do anything anymore, I think. And also what we have to change are not children, are adults. Children will be adults in 20 years and it will be too late. So now we have to try to start with adults today and work from the neighbors, because we have the power to take care of our own future, our own needs, and our own present, actually, more than our future. So if I'm ever elected, that's what I will bring SONEC to my city council too. Thank you. And I pass it to, I don't know who else wants to speak. Rita or Barbara? Or
I
Pia?
could go on. I can go on.
Okay, thank you. I stopped
Thank you so much,
sharing.
Renata. I will try to present you something, another example like Renata did, and I do it for Pia because she was not able to get into our talk. She didn't get the link, so she's very upset at the moment, and I promised to show you the slides she prepared for us. So I share with you 1 second. Pia is living in, no, this is the wrong one. I'm sorry. Will you see the presentation? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Lively.
Not in presentation mode yet.
Yes, a second. Now it's working. Pia lives in Germany, in Augsburg, in the southern part of Germany, and she's there also a politician. And she was one of our members in SONEC. And my name is Rita. I'm living in Vienna, Austria, and was also part of this project. And Pia was right from the beginning when we were starting SONEC, running something like a prototype of a SONEC in Augsburg, in a not so much privileged neighborhood, a little bit neglected situation. And she started to initiate meetings where people come together 2 times a month, planning and doing action for this little space you saw before. And they started by knocking at the doors, meeting at the playground, messenger groups, and emails and posters. Like Joseph Rathinam was telling us as SONEC group, go out, meet your neighbors, get in contact, try to meet each other. And they also started with collecting rubbish, which was important there. And then they started meeting about trying to plan this part of their little playground, what it could look like. And they started talking in a Sociocratic way, in rounds, with opening and closing round and consent decisions. They practiced every meeting, and these were people who had no idea about Sociocracy or anything. So she was moderating them. Pia is a certified practitioner. And then they had a conference with Joseph Rathinam last August in Augsburg, where he met the city administration and the neighborhood that is called Am Bogen. And they showed the film from Anna Kersting, Power to the Children. Anna was also part of our team. And this gave it a little boost to go on. So they, the Sociocratic, in retrospective, she says the Sociocratic structure helps to develop trust and equality, participation, and a sustainable network community with talented and skills of many neighbors. They now can show what they can do and what they are able to do. And they also have one woman who is now in charge of this project. So it can go on without Pia and Maria, who also helped her. And support of the neighborhood circle was given by the city of Augsburg. Like in many German and Austrian cities, there are some fundings for a project like that. You can quite easily get them. They help them to get a room for meetings and some financial resources and the participation in this little park. So the administration was willing to work with them, to cooperate with them. And this is what the playground looks now today. So it's a really nice playground. Also, the financial support for this work came from the city of Augsburg. So it was a kind of pilot project how to learn how these neighborhood circles could work. It was on a small scale, but now we have new experiences how to scale it up and how to cooperate with the administration. And if you want to get in contact with Pia and Maria Brandenstein and the woman Carmen Sanchez Piva is the one who is in charge in the community now. And she's also learning the Sociocratic way. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Rita. Renata, if you're able to, I know you're our host here. So would you please see if you can make Kathy Sippel a co-host as well? And in the meantime, Barbara, would you like to add anything to the story thus far?
Can anybody stop the screen sharing? I can't, I'm sorry. Doesn't allow me. Thank you.
I can also tell a story from Naya because Naya isn't with us. And I think we should see the youth parliament in Thermi. Have a view on that. You can see my screen. This is a picture of them. So I really want to bring into the first pilot what we had before we started with SONEC. This was in Greece, in Thermi, near Thessaloniki, a youth parliament. And very important to know that the person who is very near in the municipality and with the mayor initiated this youth council. And John Bach was asking me if I know somebody who can help, who can support with the sociocratic expertise. And luckily we had them because we started with Sociocracy in Greece in 2018. You can see here a meeting with young people, and in the middle the initiator and Naya, she cannot join with us now, and Sophia on the right side. And what they did was a really strong implementation process with all the young people in Thermi. So they invited them to come together, and the reason was that the young people in this 50,000 inhabitants town, they started to become more and more violent. And so they said, oh, we have to do something with them. We have to bring them together. And so they really started to bring in the villages. These are 14 villages. In the more bigger ones, they started with a circle, and 6 circles started at the beginning. And there, everybody learned how to make decisions together and make projects in a sociocratic way. Yeah, and now they are completely connected to the world, and they are also part of the World Children Parliament. And I'm very happy that this happened in Thessaloniki. I think we shall hear now Kathy, isn't it?
And Kathy, are you able? Yes, we've got you as co-host. Great. Thank you so much, Renata.
Okay, thank you. Getting there. Just got to get into slideshow mode. Okay, let's see. Well, back it up a little. Okay. Came off not on page 1 and it's not letting me get back. Oh, okay. Yes, it's hard to pick sometimes. For some reason, my phase 1 is not showing up. It's on my screen, but you can't see it. It's a little confusing the way I order this, that it says, oh, there we go. Measure, lead, do, which obviously in sociocracy, it's always lead, do, measure. But I kind of was learning sociocracy in the middle of the process. So I have done my best to overlay with Barbara's wonderful training. She is my mentor, and I've been going through her Austrian model for learning to be a sociocracy consultant. I've had training from Nate, I've had training from Governance Alive, and I'm also a member of SOFA. So I feel like I've got all the greatest minds helping me to, get up to speed on sociocracy. But in any case, I was just learning sociocracy in 2020 when I was tasked with organizing a group of citizens to help lead a climate initiative here locally where I live in Northwest Indiana. And so really not knowing what I was doing, I just started facilitating meetings during the pandemic with a group of really passionate citizens. And together we decided, without knowing that we were forming a common aim, but we just, rational beings, came up with the idea to get our regional Planning Commission to develop a regional greenhouse gas emissions inventory, thinking that working on climate, you need to measure first, what is the problem that we need to solve? So we were successful in that. And although the date on this little sheet is 2017, that's just the data of the greenhouse gases that we were measuring, because that was a bit in the past. So anyway, that was 2021. Next, I led a public input session to develop a regional climate action plan framework based on the data that we were able to collect in the first phase. And I feel very like Sociocracy did a very good job of convincing our regional planning commission, who didn't even have as much engagement as breakout sessions. They only talked at people. They really didn't have a very effective way of interfacing with the public, but they allowed me to facilitate sociocratically. And though they hated the word circles, I said, could we call them Zoom breakout rooms? So we had a plenary circle and then we had breakout circles. So I kind of had to a little bit trick them into sociocracy, but they agreed. We never would have made it that far without. So in any case, I only met Nate and got involved in his cohort a little over a year ago. I just checked the email and I was in the cohort that began last April. So ideally, had I learned all of this in order, maybe my slides wouldn't look so messy, but it is what it is. Throughout our process of doing those climate engagement sessions, we learned that the most important thing I'm going to tell you about is what I'm going to call citizen circles. What we found is that we're going to have this regional climate action plan, but without some capacity in the local municipalities, the mayors, the city councils, the town council people, they don't have the specific knowledge to do anything with this data, with this action plan. So develop a viable local climate action plan, we really need engaged citizens to take on the role of a sustainability commission. Currently, we only have 2 cities within our region, which is about 800, 900,000 people that have these commissions. So even our regional planning commission, which was part of our general circle, they saw the need to develop, we're calling these citizen sustainability groups. So now this year in phase 3 of our plan is more doing. We're doing now public engagement to try to build these sustainability commissions. And I had to think about, how am I going to do that? I'm one person. I don't know everybody across this huge region. but I tried to think, where are their databases of people that I could perhaps get into these neighborhood groups? Nate gave me the advice, Barbara gave me the advice, start small, start within your local municipality and grow outward. And that just really wasn't the entry point that I could afford to start from. I had already committed to a regional approach. So I had this scattershot, database of people on the one hand within a time bank. That's like a presentation for a different day. But if anybody knows about time banking, I did found and still coordinate a time bank. And most of those people are fairly passionate about the environment. So that was a start. And then I thought, what project could we overlay that would address environment and give me a whole lot more data? Here in the United States, where I am, there is a nonprofit that's called the National Wildlife Federation. That's what NWF stands for. And they have this way that they can certify a city. They had only ever done cities before, where they can certify a city as a wildlife habitat. I had done that in my own backyard. And I just felt like if people were so inclined to take on that project in their own space, that it would be very likely, not guaranteed, that they might be a citizen that would care about sustainability. So I'm also a student of permaculture. And one of the concepts in permaculture is stacking functions. If you're going to do one thing, how can you make it do more than one thing? So my next slide kind of shows what I did to try to merge these two groups of people as an experiment to see if I could make things happen. For our way that we convene the time bank, we use meetup.com, which is a software program I believe is available throughout the world. And we've never been really careful or specific about stating a mission on our events for these meetups, but to try to make it more of an introduction into a common aim, to lure people, let's say, into these little hubs. I put on there for the first time the mission. Here's what the mission is. It's to meet current and past people who have taken permaculture, coursework. And we're going to talk about how permaculture relates to this, environmental project, that National Wildlife Federation project. And so I kind of threw out a pebble in both of these ponds, and then, at the gathering, really tried to understand whose needs were being satisfied. I put in yellow the people who mainly came because it was a permaculture meetup, and then in blue, people that mainly came because of their interest in the National Wildlife Federation. And during the course of the meeting, I was well satisfied that the people here in the middle definitely were very happy to combine both of those aims. The other people, I found out later that, this lady is actually a green, and she's since graduated to be a member of my core team. And some of these people, I just haven't had time to talk with them and see if I can graduate them. But this is kind of how I'm retrospectively retrofitting, the people into local hubs. And then my next process would be to meet with people when I've identified them by their zip code or by their neighborhood, to see if we can gather them, in a neighborhood hub and help them form a sustainability commission. So I know that's, a little outside the box, but this is just some of my background. If any of that sounds interesting, I just want to invite you to connect with me, because there's a lot more. And I just feel like I want to concentrate on the part that really honors the neighborocracy. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And I really hope I can help spread neighborocracy the right way here in the US. If I'm starting from the beginning, I have better capacity to do that. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Barbara.
All right. Thank you very much to my fellow presenters. And I want to really underline that there were a lot of other people who contributed a huge amount of energy to making this SONEC project a success. We're just a few of the people who were involved that are sharing with you today. And there are big questions we have about where we take SONEC in the future. So one thing we know for sure is that in every one of the countries in Europe that was involved, and I think you can tell that, in North America, there are people picking this up and running with it. And it may not be obvious, but this is also true in Africa and Latin America, that people have been inspired both by the Southern Indian model, but also by the work that we've done in Europe, the way we've explored how to translate out of the Southern Indian model into this kind of more European institutional language. So I would love to talk more about what the structures are, what the process is, all this kind of stuff that you can find in our SONEC handbook. But because you can find it in the SONEC handbook, I'm going to just press pause on my talking and make it possible for other people to chip in. So if you have a question that you want to make sure that the people who've been in SONEC answer for you, could you please put it in the chat right now? Oh, great. Michelle's already demonstrating this. Thank you, Michelle. And then we can go around and sort of do this as a little bit of a panel discussion and let people who, the SONEC folks, respond to issues that are coming up in the chat. And once we've had a chance to respond to all of the questions that are coming up, then we can switch over into a little bit more open-ended dialogue as a group. But if there are questions, I just want to give people a chance to get to them. Michelle, you were saying considering equity in developing shared measures. Yeah, so just to highlight this, Michelle is a colleague that I've really enjoyed working with in the past. And she and her co-founder, Tracy, really taught me about collective impact alliances. And that was really helpful in the SONEC project, because there's, basically, we've got Umesh, who's part of the Neighbourhood Parliaments movement in Southern India. Umesh is about to pop in here. But in a neighborhood parliament, how do you engage with your local area? Well, you engage using something that they call a convergence network, but is basically the same as a collective impact network. And so in this kind of translating, we've been finding analogous structures that we know work well in a North American or European context. Yeah, so, and the point that Michelle's making about participatory evaluation and measuring equity, that's, in a collective impact framework, you want to have some things that you agree are the direction that you're headed towards, the ways of measuring the shared vision of even, of that network. Does anybody else want to say something about that part? Yeah, Michelle?
Just sharing a little bit of what we've learned that's over the years, that's, in areas, whether it's a public health issue or a economic development issue, there are, often unrepresented, we know that unrepresented and low expectations of different communities in any area. Often this divides on racial lines. And in those public health and economic development in different areas, they have often been researched a lot, but not brought in from the very beginning of measuring what they care about. So bringing those folks who are going to be impacted in, and of course, sociocracy, this matches. It's just important. It was important to me as a white cis person, to get a little more education and understanding about creating, something that's going to break through my implicit biases. So we want to just remember, and so I just wanted to point folks who are doing, I thought this participatory evaluation work would be valuable for this SONEC community and as it's developing. It's great to see you.
It's nice to see you too. Well, I want to say that in the UK, we've actually got a participatory action research specialist on our team now for the big funding push that we're doing across the UK collective impact network called Control Shift, and that's where we're going with that in the UK. But Barbara, Nara asked the question, what is the next step for SONEC? Do you intend to spread it even more around the world? And do you want to answer that a little bit?
Oh, yes. Our network, we are now a big network in Europe. We have many ideas how to go on. And we now started to, with small scale Erasmus Plus projects, because we need to be paid for the work, what we are doing. And so there are very different programs, what we can do together. And they all are now building on the SONEC result, what we have now on the European platform that everybody can find it. And this is very helpful to do. So, but what you see here is that many of us, they are starting at home. So where they are living. And I can also add an experience. We are now on the level that although the governmental and ministry people, they are curious to learn more about SONEC, because there are some, for many years, they see that the neighborhood should be a community and support each other. Because now when we have more and more elderly people and less young of them, then there is a very big need to bring them together. And we have in the field of the health, or how do we call it in English? The promotion of the health.
Public health.
The public health, yes. There we have a person who is really promoting neighborhood circles, and he has invited us to be one of the to give a seminar, a 2 days workshop for multipliers in municipalities to learn more about it. They started with the idea of caring community, but when you read the handbook of caring community, then you see, okay, they do not have any tools to bring people together in a that they became friends, and they have they know each other better, and they start to care for each other. So Sociocracy and the Sociocratic Neighbourhood Circles will really be a tool for people that they will soon and easily see what the benefit of these meetings, of these knowing each other and relationships, what they create on it, what will be. And so the Ministry of Health, they have a big funding organization, and the leader of this funding organization now was inviting us from Sociocracy Center Austria to present what is Sociocracy and what is Sociocratic Neighbourhood Circles, to learn more about the potential of healthy people, of the public health. Because it's also well known that elderly people, they are coming to a pension, so to the age when they are not working any longer in an organization. They need to stay, they need them to stay, but they go because nobody asked them to be involved in decision making. And so the Ministry of Health, with the fund of the Healthy Austria, they invited us to talk about and to learn more how Sociocracy can help to increase the health of the people. So I'm very happy that in Austria we are on that level, and Sociocracy is well known from many people. Also, the city of Vienna is starting with some experiments with Sociocratic facilitation. Yeah, so this is to give hope to people.
Great, thank you, Barbara. So we have a question from Dave about how we find working with elected officials in the bureaucracy, and I'm really bummed that Pia hasn't been able to join today. Not the wonderful Pia Rohn that we have here, but the Pia that we've been working with for a few years. and but because she works in city government, and so she has a very specific experience of doing sociocracy in city government and working into the neighborhoods using the Sociocratic Neighbourhood Circles approach. But I want to say briefly that in the UK, there's a non-aligned local politics movement called flat pack democracy, which is about taking over your local city government or town government, but not with any political party. So it eliminates political parties from local politics. And actually, we've been closely connected with the people who started this movement, and their town is one of the examples featured in our handbook. Actually learning from them, some folks are just about to take over the town next door to where I live. And I'm going to start working with them on sociocracy, which it's been a lot of work to get to that point. But the point that I'm wanting to get to here is that it's great if you have friendly politicians and can work with friendly politicians, but you don't have to have friendly politicians. You can be part of a movement that takes over local politics, or you can work around local politics. And so there are multiple different ways that you can relate to local politics, but it's best if you can be friends. That is really the best, absolute best. And hopefully the handbook could offer some strategies around that. Rita?
Yeah, I would like to add that we have a research project in Vienna, and we are trying this way to work with friendly politicians. And we found that the politicians are also very depending on the community and the citizens to accept or to support them, especially with topics they are not very used to, like climate change adaptation. And the doors are quite open. We now have to use them. And like a city of Vienna, it's not so easy to take over the politics. So the first step is, and we are working on a Sociocratic consultation process, trying to engage politicians to really listen to citizens, and hope that there is we can find a crack in the wall to work on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's it for the questions that we've got in the chat.
May I respond to that one as well?
Yeah,
maybe?
go ahead, Kathy. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I just really wanted to piggyback on what Rita just said. And what I found is that I think our politicians found it a little bit refreshing, as well as the Regional Planning Commission, which isn't technically, government, but a quasi-governmental body. I think they found it refreshing that we came not with problems, but with a proposal. We said, here is what we want to do with you, not here's what we want you to do to get reelected, or, it's going to be some kind of a smear campaign. We had a really specific ask, and we also positioned it as, if we do this collaboratively, here's the cost benefit. It was almost like Groupon for a climate action plan, giving them the numbers that if you were to do this in silos, here's how much it would cost you to get this type of report done. Like the greenhouse gas inventory, for instance, might be up to $25,000 US. And using interns and, using a collaborative approach, it was a tiny fraction of that cost for each municipality. So I think they really appreciated that. With our organizing principles, we were actually, saving them some money. And now with our offer to form sustainability commissions, we're kind of offering up the specific expertise. They see it is a lot of work to actually carry this action plan through. So once again, we're bringing proposals, and we're bringing that, sociocracy, is it safe enough to try, good enough for now, approach. And one one town even gave our citizen advisory committee that title rather than a sustainability commission, which is what they wanted. They said, let's put a time frame on it and we'll test it and we'll see how you do. And let's see what projects, can be accomplished using this new model that's not familiar to us. But I think, posing it like an experiment is really helpful. And I have found that people, it really lands well, neighborocracy versus sociocracy. I love using that word because it's so much less scary and so much more intuitive here in the United States, where sociocracy is not at all, a common word yet. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. So we've got 8 minutes left in the time that we've have set aside for this conversation. We managed to get through all of the main parts. And, I see names and faces that I know and some that I don't. And I don't know if people want to have freedom to just chat for a little bit. But if you want your voice to come out in the space, please feel free to unmute and just start talking with us. Please be aware of time though, because if you talk for 5 minutes, then that's like most of the time gone. Oh, goodbye, Rita. Well, I guess I would like to just check. Barbara, we've been talking about fundraising, in the UK, fundraising across Europe. And one of the main things that we're raising funds for in the UK is a community of practice. So a learning space where local neighborhood democracies can come into contact with each other. I wonder if we were hosting an English language learning space, do you think that you folks in Austria or Renata, your folks in Italy, or Kathy, your folks in Iowa, would be interested in participating in that learning community?
As I remember, we really wanted to start such a learning community at the end of the SONEC project in Budapest when we met last time.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know if there is a problem because we have this Brexit that the UK isn't any longer a member of the EU or European Union. So
yes, it's a problem. It's horrible. It's horrible.
It's horrible. Yeah. So I think everybody will be happy if you start such an exchange place because we are waiting for it. So if it's possible, yes, let's join it.
Okay, because we're definitely doing that, but I wasn't sure if we should throw it open beyond, well, we're calling it WISE because it's Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and England, but outside of WISE.
Find out if it's possible that you can invite also neighborhoods or initiatives from other European and all over the world countries.
Okay, I'll talk with people in the community, but I don't think we're going to get objections. Everybody's crazy globalists,
Mm-hmm. Great.
Well, good. I'm meeting my organizing needs by being here today. Does anybody else have comments or questions? Yeah, Kathy?
Just wondering, I would be happy to defer to anybody else who might have a more burning question, but I know collective impact is a big part of how you work. I'm just curious if you could share any more details of, how you see somebody getting that started when they're simultaneously trying to get these, neighborhood models set up, because that is something I have yet to do. And I think it would really help, be the umbrella for this issue. Is that another thing that's out of order, or can I also do that out of order?
Well, I'm happy to talk about my experience. What I would say is that I feel like I'm constantly just scrabbling and not doing it very well, and just barely pulling people together at the last moment. But I feel like Michelle is the person that you should be asking, because she's really an expert in the collective impact network side of things. So I'm happy to talk about it from a SONEC perspective. I'm happy to talk about my experience, but Michelle is an expert in collective impact.
If you want to get a call, get together, later, and I had to step away, so I'm not even sure what your question was, but.
Well, Kathy was asking about setting up. She's basically saying, I know there's different parts of the model, and we're doing this and we're doing that, but how should I launch the collective impact part of the model? And I'm saying, well, I'm happy to talk about my experience, but you and Tracy are a fantastic resource on this.
I will help where I can, and I'd love to hear from you, Nathan, what your experience was, because it's all still, we're all still learning.
Well, for me, it's been a case of gradually persuading existing networks to think more in terms of a collective impact frame. So shifting away from the network running projects to the network holding space and clusters of partners running projects, and getting people to unify around shared values and a sense of some kind of collective measure of impact, but rather than having a central coordination function. But we lost Michelle, it looks like. Anyway, but that's just again, we have been doing that with the Control Shift network, and we've got 180 organizations in that network, and and we've got funding with transition is part of the Control Shift network, and a lot of our funding has come through transition fundraising up until now, and we're hoping to get another stream of fundraising that's specifically devoted to this community of practice for the neighborhood democracies or locally led holistic community development. But again, that I just, since we lost Michelle, I'm kind of like,
I'm back. I'm sorry. Hi.
Okay.
I'm back.
Michelle, you tell. Well, we're at the end here. Let's do our closing round. Barbara.
I want to invite everybody. We plan a 4 hours SONEC workshop on the 19th of September, but we do not know who will spread the information. So I hope SOFA and also Sociocracy Center Austria, they will spread the information. So have a look there, and maybe they can send you the invitation with your email address if you are interested. Thank you very much.
That's great. Yep. We're all the SONEC folks who are here today will be there for that. And we would love to share more of our experience with you. And heck, even teach something, explicitly teach it for more than like 5 minutes at a time. Any other last words?
Yeah, I'm just going to thank you all, Nathaniel, Barbara, Renata, Kathy, Michelle, and Rita that has left, for sharing your experience with us. It's been recorded, so many more people will watch it, hopefully, and will spread this inspiring story. So thank you so much for being with us.